What if instead of going to the other side of the coin, we dissolve the coin and we just get now for a second, right? And we don't have my identity is the view to my parents or my solution to my parents or the overcoming of my deepest fear, but we instead be present for the idea that it's time now for these fears to come to light and leave versus be repressed with a solution. Because if you do a bunch of stuff as the solution to that fear will still come to light. And I think we've seen a whole world that's done that, where there's all these shadows. Like a great example would be at a different consciousness in the 2000s, like The Secret came out. It's like, think positive. All this great stuff about thinking positive. That's awesome. There's still a negative here. There's still a negative that hurts. And I think 2020 was the beginning of, hey, now you've been thinking positive and you've had all these things the way you want it. Well, there's a big underground dark layer of you became that as a solution to that you were abused. And in 2020, we're going to look at that you were abused. The government has this amazing economy going while secretly there's child trafficking all over the place. All the darkness needs to come to light too, right? The darkness in the world and the darkness in us. So no matter how much we put a big fake smile on or get all the solutions, there's still deep fear of, I don't want to look at this. But imagine the power of being okay with looking at it and sitting here and being with that you were abused or attacked or were bad or did it wrong. And you're finding a new level of love, because usually we've learned love in the past for positive thoughts or people that have things in common with us or whatever. Can you love shame? Can you love guilt? Can you love hate? Can you love sadness? Can you love lostness? One of the things that's unfolded in my teachings, I've done now, I really believe about 16,000 one-on-ones in the last 15, 16 years. And one of the things that's unfolded massively in the last 6 years is I will get a client, they'll be like, I have to get this business going. I have to get the girl back. I have to whatever. And then I go like this. And if you don't, what happens? Every have to has a if I don't, and we find your core wound, then I'm a failure. Then I'm not enough. Then I'll be bad to my mom in 1987. Then I'll be a piece of crap. Then here's what I have them say to the pattern. I'll have them say, you're allowed to be a failure in my body. It's never heard that. I love you even if no one hears you. You're allowed to disappoint your dad. You're allowed to do it wrong. A lot of people have just, I can't do it wrong, right? You're allowed to do it wrong. You're allowed to be not enough. What happens there is the pattern that thinks it can't be a failure for the first time is hearing it's loved even if it is. And then it loses its charge. And 80% of the time, I will watch them say, you're allowed to be a failure in my body. And I'll watch a bunch of tears show up, because in their childhood, they weren't allowed to be a failure. So they thought they weren't loved by their parents, and they were using their parents' ego at conditional love as the monitor. But by being the parent now and saying, you're allowed to do it wrong. You're allowed to be a piece of crap. You're allowed to be hated by everyone. You're not creating a person that's going to be evil. You're creating a person who's now loved no matter what they do, who is a million times more powerful. And the more you're not doing things out of don't be a failure, the more you're in the now, and the more God can just work through you. Because if you're going, I can't be a failure to my dad when I was a kid, and that's building your business, then God's not working through you. Or fear is what's building everything. And in the past, that consciousness was fine when we had motivation in the 80s and 90s and everything. But now the light is too bright and it's going, there's darkness here. There's all these underground things. There's the Epstein files. There's, I can't be a piece of crap, whatever. And we are learning love on a level. And I believe love means seeing. That's it. I love you that I see you so deeply, and I want to see you deeper. I want to learn your heart. I want to know what you are. I want to know what's in here. That's love to me. I love you even if you're in full shame or embarrassed or off. So we're here to learn love. And sometimes love needs to be like, can you love the hard things? And that's where all of a sudden you'll find a power just work through you is unstoppable.
And you can see why it's so hard for people, because they're already going through much stress, anxiety, all of these things. So to face something that's so deep, it's probably been avoided their whole lives. It's just natural for our brains to want to avoid these hard things. It's kind of like the shadow work that Paul Young talks about. What happens when we're able to face those dark things that has been hitting, but yet building up this whole time? What happens to our bodies, mental health, to the people around us? Like, what's that doing to us once that?
It's interesting you say the people around us, because I have seen so many times that when you deal with the issue inside, it's almost like the world outside of you mirrors that you healed it on the inside. Here's an actual example that I use a lot on podcasts because it's so quantifiable, but it's a moment I'll never forget, where 5 years ago I was working with this woman. She's on this call with me. She's really triggered because she hasn't spoken to her mom in 8 years. Her mom had cut her off. So we got her to a point where she saw that the resistance to the issue was in her body, right? It's weird to think everything you're scared of is in your body. Like, you're scared of the world falling apart, whatever, war coming here, economic collapse. Where do you feel the fear? In you. You're scared of going to hell. Hell's in your body. Everything you're scared of is inside of you, not outside. You're not scared of anything outside of you. It's just triggering you could be present for where it's scary inside. Right. So this woman says, I haven't spoken to my mom in 8 years. We get to a place where she starts saying stuff like, mom's allowed to never call me again. She grieves her mom. She releases her mom. Then now that we have this clear energy, after a half an hour, she starts talking about what she can do now that she's not in this thing. She's like, I want to build this. I want to create this. She really got free of her mom in this 1 hour call. In the last 5 minutes, her mom called her. It was as if the war inside released the war. And now that you're not trying to fix the situation, because who's fixing it? If you're in war with what is, right? The 5-year-old version of you is the one that's trying to deal with it. You by yourself, not God. You're not surrendering it to God if you're worrying about it. So the you at 5 that tried to keep everything together with your parents' ego's circumstance is the one that's trying to deal with the issue. But when you get present for that child and that child can be cried out, now you've actually handed it to God. And God goes, thank you, now I'll deal with it. I've had this happen so many times. I have an 8-year-old daughter. She's so wonderful. And when I was younger, there was when she was younger, a few years ago, there was a time where she was with me at a public place and she let go of my hand for a second, and I saw her get lost at a farmer's market for a second and not know where I was. It hit my body. And for quite a while, I had this deep fear of losing her. And I had dream after dream, nightmare that I'm in a public place with her and I lost her. One day I decided to let this fear come to light. So I meditated and I realized there's a Vivi, my daughter, outside and one inside. This one inside is the one I'm scared to lose. That's not her. That's this thought of her. So I allowed myself to do something that sounds crazy, but I allowed myself to let the fear come to light. And I sat there and cried out and said goodbye to her that she's missing and gone. Then after that, I was a million times more present, and I'm probably 10 times more likely to not lose her out of being connected versus doing it from fear. So I believe more and more something that's really crazy, but I believe almost the entire world is a mirror of you. Every one of us doesn't want war in Iran, and we don't want to have war, and yet we're all at war in our bodies. I'm at war with parts of myself. I'm at war with people from my past. We have enemies that we are inside of our body that we're mad at. We have parts of ourselves that hide, parts that are embarrassed, don't want to be seen, hiding like it's hiding behind a barricade. And then there's a part of you that gets mad at yourself, so you're just grenading yourself. You think of Trump and you're going, oh, that guy you're at war. Wouldn't the mirror be war? Right? So we've compartmentalized this external, we put it inside of ourselves, and we're at war with ourselves all day, and I'll overcome it, I'll do this thing. What happens if we get present and see how many parts of ourselves are at war? Wouldn't the mirror be completely an external world that's at war? And what would happen? And people don't believe they're this powerful, and it's almost controversial. But what would happen if you allowed the war to unfold and you became a beacon of peace for the war of everyone or everything that's in your body?